Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk a Good Game, where it has just ended. Stade Rennais 3, West Ham United 1 in a very disappointing, in the end, flat pre-season friendly. In a time where we want something to cheer about, where West Ham is not going well in the transfer market and everything feels a bit down and a bit dour. On the pitch, it certainly did not provide anything other than a down and dour performance. There was maybe a slight period where he looked a bit more positive, and there are some positives to take out of it, which we'll get into. But for the most part, a poor performance, a very, very poor performance, not a good one, not a vibey one, and I can't help but come away with it feeling anything but a little bit disappointed, if I'm being honest with you. Felt like this could have been a time to really raise our hopes. A nice win here, a good result would have maybe made the rest of us in the community feel a bit good, but certainly a crap 3-1 loss. Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, we'll talk about it in detail. If you're wondering where Gio and Gonzo are, neither of them are available today, hence me doing everything, including the build-up show and the watch-along, but they will be back, I'm sure, both talking about the games in detail, potentially tomorrow and everything else. I'm sure they'll go into it on the respective channels, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of that. But it started poor. You looked at the lineup as it was announced. It was definitely Moyes' ball. The team was obviously announced in the numerical order that everyone on Twitter hates, but when you look at it and you break it down, it's your classic David Moyes 4-2-3-1. There's no messing about. That was as Moyes' ball as it was going to get. And the big important thing in my mind was that Danny Ings was playing up front by himself. Not something that could ever work. If we're being frank about it, Danny Ings up front by himself is just not a thing that any of us thinks is possible to make work. And yet again, today was another good example. Danny Ings having a good pre-season, it should be noted. He's looked lively in other games where we haven't been playing this specific formation and he's been up front by himself. And the second we do play this specific formation, the Moyes ball technique, the 4-2-3-1, he looks up front by himself and he was there was just nothing going on. We couldn't really create anything. There was one nice chance where the ball came through to him and I felt like the defenders were just so much faster than me. He was going to have to hit it first time to try and find any effort on goal. He manages to cut back with a little nice chop and hits it with his weak foot, but ultimately a poor effort. Outside of that, basically nothing from the hair transplant Trezeguet just was not happening. And the only real positive out of that first half performance, I thought, was Lucas Paquetá was looking really lively. He was looking really good. Nice flicks, nice tricks, nice passing. Anything was going through him. He was the only bright spark about it. And 8 minutes in from a Stade Rennais position, the biggest bright spark was an absolute weldy. Santa Maria with the goal hit. I mean, if you haven't watched the game, almost just go back to see his goal specifically. Even from a West Ham perspective, it is an incredible effort. There will definitely be questions about whether or not Areola could have done better with it. It was a shot from 35 yards. They're playing the ball around amongst themselves on the left-hand side. They come inside to Santa Maria, who's slightly more inside from the touchline. He's got lots of time and space on the ball and unleashes one heck of an effort. Like I say, about 30 yards, maybe 25, 30 yard screamer right into the top corner. Maybe some questions about whether Areola could do better. Personally, I don't think he could have. I think it's just one of those things where you look at it and you go, fair play. I applauded it on the watch along. It cut to the crowd. They were applauding it. It was a belter. It was an absolute belter from Stade Rennais. And that opening 15, 20 minutes was certainly all them. They were all over us. We were slow. We were lethargic. We couldn't do anything. We didn't know how to attack. We couldn't get the ball out from ourselves. It was just a really poor performance in those stages. And they were all over us. And just after the goal, they had a couple more opportunities apart from that. Then in the second section of the first half, the maybe last 15 minutes, we were growing into the game. We were nowhere near good enough, to be clear, but we were slowly getting somewhere. We were the better of the two sides. I think both sides you can make the argument for being poor in that first half, but we were slowly getting there. We weren't good enough, though. Thankfully, that changed after half-time. Half-time, we made two key subs. We took off Danny Ings and we brought on Mubama, and we took off Fornals, who was playing on the right wing, and we brought on Jared Bowen. This completely changed the way we were. Completely changed. All of a sudden, we were quick, we were dangerous, we were finding good opportunities, and Mubama's positioning specifically and his movement compared to Danny Ings is night and day. That's not necessarily an insult on Danny Ings. Danny Ings is one type of striker, Mubama is the other type of striker. But I'm being honest, if it comes down to it on the opening day of the season and we're going to play this kind of football, I think Mubama has to start. We've seen three of our strikers today. Mikel Antonio is unavailable. He's still on his extended holidays after playing for Jamaica. But Mubama's movement and just constant nuisance presence. He was creating opportunities for himself. He was creating opportunities for other people through smart, fast movement, something we just do not have with Danny Ings and we don't have with Scamacca. It was really, really exciting to see. He's been the person this entire summer who has impressed me probably the most consistently out the outfield players. I think Fabianski has had by and large a really good preseason today, although there's definitely some question marks about something that's going to be coming up in a second. But from an outfield perspective, I think Mubama has been really, really good. And the reports earlier on in the week of the fact that every one of our youth players is available for loan, apart from Mubama, who is going to have a role in this first team, I was like, how is he going to get ahead of Antonio? How is he going to get ahead of Scamacca? How is he going to get ahead of Ings? Well, actually, today was a really good example of how he could do that, because directly compared to the two other strikers that he played against today, in terms of Danny Ings and Scamacca, who both had game time, he looked by far and away the most effective in this formation. And I think that is a huge compliment to him and a huge boost for him, because actually, all of a sudden, I don't think he's fourth choice. I think he genuinely has a shout of starting games for us this year. And that's a huge thing for someone of his age. He looked brilliant. He looked absolutely brilliant. And our pressure from that was excellent. And we ended up getting a goal 65 minutes in. It's a training ground goal. It's as simple as you like. Emerson, free kick from the left-hand side, whips in. Thomas Souček rises. Mandanda, who's in goal for Stade Rennais now, formerly of Crystal Palace, of course, stood perfectly still, doesn't know what to do with it. It's as training ground as you like. Beautiful, easy, too easy, if anything. And it summed up that period where we were just really, really good. Not really, really good. We were good. We were much, much, much better. We were making it happen. We were creating good opportunities, and it was through to the two subs, bringing on Bowen and bringing on Mubama. We looked like a completely different side. Unfortunately, about 5 minutes later, we made two more subs, which sort of ruined the vibe. We went from 4-2-3-1 to a more traditional looking 4-4-2. We brought on Scamacca and Cornet. We took off Ben Rama and Paquetá, who was, again, second half still looking absolutely brilliant. Paquetá was brilliant today. And we went 4-4-2. And I'll be honest with you, no, we were awful. We lost everything. All of that momentum we had, all of the smart movement we had, all of the attacking prowess we had, it just went. And a lot of that was due to Paquetá leaving, who was brilliant today. But I don't know. The idea of Scamacca and Mubama up front, there's something there potentially, but in this 4-4-2, it does not work. I think you could make an argument for giving it a shot in maybe a 3-5-2 style system or something like that. But today it was terrible. It didn't work at all. And I don't think Mubama was to blame. I don't necessarily think Scamacca's to blame either. I just think the profile and the way the players played was just all over the shop. And it wasn't a shock that basically the second we did that, we completely crumbled. There was nothing to us after that moment. So the second we went from 4-2-3-1 to 4-4-2, we brought on Cornet, we brought on Scamacca, it just did not work. We were awful from that moment onwards. 5 minutes later, we had a warning sign initially where they played it down they were playing it around. We were sitting deep in our two banks of four shape. They were putting it on us. They were pressing us. They were harrying us. And Cornet does well to win the ball back, instantly tries to make a run. Nice. All right, let's get that counter-attacking flow going. But when that fell apart literally straight away, he just did not go back into his position, and they get a shot from exactly where he was. Exactly where he was. They create a shot from it. And the entire time on the watch along, I'm like, where's Cornet? For like a minute. And it wasn't like 2 seconds later. This was a minute later or 30 seconds later or something. And I'm sitting there going, where's Cornet? Where is Cornet? Is he not going to get back? Is he not going to get back? And they create an opportunity from that. You go, right, okay, warning sign. Because 1 minute later, essentially the exact same thing happens. They play through that side of the pitch so easy. The left-hand side today, after Ben Rama came off unbelievably, was just awful defensively, just an absolute mess. They came flying through. And Kulimoendo, I think is how you pronounce his name, with a really nice finish. They get in behind Cornet, get into that space. Emerson's not there. They drive it across, low cross, something we're terrible at dealing with, those pullbacks that we don't know what to do with. And Kulimoendo, who's how I'm going to pronounce it, gets in front of the man and finishes it really nicely. Something Scamacca would do in previous games. Bad. And all of a sudden I'm like, right, well, this has gone from a fairly positive position where I felt like we could get something out of this to being quite bad indeed. And I wasn't really expecting too much after that. And lo and behold, it continued to get worse. We were just crap after that. They continued to put pressure on us. We couldn't create anything. The front two just was not working together. Without Paquetá, we were struggling to get out of ourselves, struggling to create. It wasn't really working. And then on the 88th minute, an unfortunate situation in which Ogbonna scores an own goal. But again, you have to point out Kali Muendo, whose cross is absolutely beautiful. They play it down this time, our right-hand side, their left. He's charging on. He's got a bit of space. There's a runner on the far side he tries to cross it into. But instead of just a normal cross, he plays it with the outside of his right boot to try and bend it in like that slightly early, which forces both Ogbonna and Fabianski to make a decision. And both of them sort of make the wrong decision, or at least combined. I think if only one of them made the wrong decision, we might have got away with this not being a goal. But Fabianski steps off his line and then steps up to try and cover the runner who is coming in. Ogbonna, again, forced into the awkward situation from the bent cross with the outside of the boot early, goes full stretch to try and get anything on it, gets a foot onto it. That then ends up sending it past Fabianski, who's obviously stepped off his line and tried to cover the other man. It was bad. It was bad. Cornet had an argument with the referee at this point about a potential foul against Bowen earlier on in the play, which, whatever, is much of a muchness. I think you just have to look at Kali Muendo, who had a really good game after coming on today. And that cross is just so good, so smart, just outside the boot, early stuff, something we do not see. For a debut cross as often as we do, we never see smart crossing like that. We just get the ball and we go, right, bosh. Right, he just had this nice little play. It was a chip through. It was just beautiful. It was just really nice, and you have to hold your hands up to it. Two really good goals from them in that sense. I'm including the own goal because I think that pass is so good, and a decent finish apart from that. But overall, I don't think either team can really come away from being super happy with this one. I don't think either team can come away thinking, right, we've absolutely nailed that, because I think despite scoring 3, I don't think they were very good. They had several massive opportunities in the first half, and I think maybe in the second, where it just should have gone in. How it didn't, I don't know. There was a Doku shot where he just puts it onto his right foot and just slams it way over the bar, where it was such a beautiful opportunity where it should have gone in. There was a couple of other notable ones where you're like, how has this not been a goal? How has this not been a goal? The live chat and the watch along saying should have been 2-0, should have been 2-0, like constantly, just like, how has this not happened? And we overall were nowhere close to being good enough. There was that 20-minute period, I think it was, or 25-minute period from the changes being made at half time all the way through until the the changes being made at half time till the changes being made in the second half when we brought on Scamacca and Cornet. We were good in that period. We were really good. We were excited. We were exciting. It was fun to watch again. We were moving the ball quickly. Bowen was making smart runs. Mubama was looking really lively. He was moving really well. All of these things were just working. And then we brought on Scamacca, we brought on Cornet, and it just crumbled, and we ended up conceding 2. There are question marks in this squad right now. The squad is in a really awkward position where we have too many players who are too old, who are on too late into their contracts. And this summer, I did a video on this recently, but this summer was always going to be a ridiculously difficult one because you have to get it right. We can't go out and just sort of do maybe we try this, maybe try that. With the lack of funds we have on top of that, we have to get it right. And it's worrying. It's really worrying. Midfield 2 of Downs and Souček is nowhere near good enough. Our left-hand side was nowhere near good enough. When we don't have our strongest 11 out there, which we did have for 20-25 minutes, we're nowhere near good enough. And even then, that strongest 11 includes those midfield 2 I'm talking about. Stuff has to happen in a transfer window. It just does. Whether it happens in time for our next preseason friendly or not, whether or not it happens in time for the beginning of the season or not, as we just have to get this right. Going in towards the at the end of the window, it just has to be sorted. We need at least one defensive midfielder to start, and one who is an actual good defender of a defensive midfield, because there were too many times today where they passed directly through the middle of us and we were just a bit lost. There were way too many times where they got through us way too easy. We need a defensive midfielder who's going to be able to stop that stuff. Declan Rice, one of his best traits, not to mention him, but one of his best traits was his interceptions. We need someone who's a monster at tackling and a monster at interceptions, and we need it badly. Today has shown that we need it very, very badly. If we start the game against the first game of the season with Mubama up front, I wouldn't entirely be shocked. let's end it with the two positives, which will be the person I want to mention in Mubama before I say my man of the match. I really, really was impressed by him today. I felt like his movement was so. We played 3 strikers today. We played 3. We played Skamaka, we played Ings, and we played Mubama. If you had asked me which one we paid the big money for, I probably would say Mubama. Now, that might be a stretch, but he was so abundantly better than the other 2 in this formation. It just works for him. His movement is so obvious. And when there were those rumors that he was going to be the one staying, and I was like, well, how's he going to get game time? Because he's got 3 other ahead of him and all this other sort of stuff. Today, in a game where he can be directly compared to the 2 others that we've spent relatively big money on, Skamaka we spent big money on, Danny Ings is on ridiculously high wages. He comes out smelling of all of the roses. And I tell you what, David Moyes will be looking at him and thinking, that's a guy I can work with. That's a striker that I can work with because he works so well in that system. I'm really hopeful for Mubama going forward that he is going to get the chances that he should and deserves to get after this preseason because he's done really well. And today, even without a goal, he was one of the best performers we had. However, the best performer by a mile is Paquetá. It just was. Paquetá he turned up today in a big way. The control of the ball, the flicks, the tricks, that stuff is fun. But actually, it's the other bits of play where he's on the ball and he just suckers them in. He seems to dawdle. He just lets them get close, and then all of a sudden, just a little turn, little bar to the shoulder, and then plays the ball out, and all of a sudden we can move away from it. That stuff that he added to his game in the previous 6 months, the second 6 months of the season, that sort of aspects to his game that he's added to, you can see it in abundance. He is so good. And without him, we were lost. We were absolutely lost. Someone in the live chat said, good, right. So we just can't sub off Paquetá for the entire season. And that is probably true because he was by far and away the best player today. And thankfully, he looks to be continuing his form from the second half of last season as opposed to the first half of last season. But big work ahead of us. Big work ahead of us. A lot of things to sort out. Again, I suspect we're going to be playing Moyes ball. I think it's not too much of a surprise, and I think it's probably something we should learn. I don't try to learn too much from preseason. I don't try to make huge jumping conclusions, but I think it is interesting that the second we got all of our first team players back in one position again, we went straight back to the Moyes ball tactic. If we are to do that, start Mubama is my opinion. Maybe we start Antonio if he comes back and plays well next week. I don't know. We'll see how that ends up working out. And I'm sure we'll do it all together when Gio and Gonzo are back. Like I say, they will be back, probably making videos on this preseason friendly or whatever else goes on. Maybe we sign a player. It's not going to happen, but maybe we do that. It will be covered on this channel and on the forum channel, so make sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on any of that. And of course, hit the like button because it helps us out massively. We will be back for the watch along no matter what happens. If it is live and we can watch it, we'll be doing one for the last preseason friendly next weekend, and then of course going into the Premier League season. We'll have all of the news on this channel. We'll have all the watch alongs you need, everything you need, so make sure to subscribe. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. I apologize that I'm not Gio or Gonzo. It's the way these things happen sometimes. It ends 3-1 to Stade Rennais. West Ham, a very, very poor performance, but little glimpses of good times with at least Mubama looking decent. Come on, you Irons. Enjoy yourselves. See you next time. Bye, everyone. Bye.